You were in charge of handling a $30 million deposit, weren't you? I'll take over for you.
I was forced to quit my job due to repeated harassment from the manager. It seemed he was gleefully eager to snatch away the customer I had been managing, smirking with delight at the prospect of me leaving the bank. I quickened the pace of tidying up my surroundings, trying to hide my arms that wouldn't stop goosebumps, as I replied, "I'm sorry, but the customer specifically requested me, so it's not possible."
What? Even if he requested you, you're leaving anyway, so someone has to take over. I'm saying I'll take it over. Be grateful.
He must have been desperate for this case so much. So it seemed like he's so money-minded that he doesn't show any interest in listening to me. If you can take it over, please do. I'm fired, so I'm heading out. As my last day at the bank was coming to an end, a phone rang loud enough to wake the dead sounded. That call ended up costing the manager everything. My name is Kevin, and I'm 36 years old. Having lived a life that could best be described as the epitome of average, with no noteworthy drama, I graduated from college and worked at the bank, dealing with customer relations. I'm just a plain guy whose only redeeming quality is being serious. Ever since I joined the bank, I've been doing the unglamorous work of visiting companies to discuss future transactions and pitching our services to potential new customers. Living my life as an average Joe, I'm not the type to captivate people with my stories, and naturally, I lack any slick negotiation skills, so I mainly handle reliable small to medium-sized enterprises. My peers, fluent in Spanish and leveraging their extensive networks, are making a splash with innovative styles of sales to large corporations, boasting far more impressive achievements than mine. While I spend a week visiting 2 or 3 influential small and medium-sized businesses in the countryside, my peers are simultaneously pitching to more than 10 large corporations. Feeling the urgency of becoming a dead-end employee, there was a time I wanted to succeed in making big sales to large corporations like my colleagues. I've aspired to glamorous jobs, studying sales and negotiation techniques overnight, but I never managed to apply what I learned effectively, and all my efforts ended in vain. I'll never forget the day I realized that each person has their place where they can truly thrive. I have my way of working, and trying too hard to be something I'm not just ends up looking foolish. The job I handle is also part of what supports the bank, and since I've pledged to do my best in my role, I've grown to love my modest tasks and work hard every day. However, drama seems to strike when you least expect it. Something happened that shook up my unremarkable life. I would welcome a positive change with open arms, but instead, I faced a turn of events so undesirable, I wanted to cross my arms and reject it with all my might.
Starting today, you guys will have me, Gary, as a new manager.
Typically, transfers happen in April, but now it was already June. On one humid day, Gary, the new boss from another branch, was transferred to us. Unlike me, sweating profusely in the muggy heat, he didn't sweat a drop, didn't blink, and his sharp gaze was intimidating.
I was the #1 guy at the Manhattan branch.
Speaking slowly, as if threading a needle, was our new boss.
No one has climbed the ranks to manager as quickly as I have.
It seems Gary thinks of himself as an elite. He's turning 34 this year, 2 years younger than me, yet he's already in a managerial position, so it's understandable why he would think so. Gary seems to be quite meticulous. He started individually greeting each employee after greeting everyone in general. While I was working on preparing materials for my next sales visit on my computer, it seemed to be my turn, as Gary approached me from behind and spoke up.
How old are you now?
He asked mechanically, without taking his eyes off the materials I was preparing. 36. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, I minimized the file I was working on, and only then did Gary finally look at my face. However, his eyes were lifeless and filled with a frightening intensity that made my skin crawl.
2 years older than me, and still just a grunt.
He placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered deliberately into my ear.
Hey, old fart. How long are you going to keep making these pathetic reports?
His tone was clear, as if addressing an elderly person, yet it contained a hint of sarcasm. Despite my irritation, I realized arguing with such a pointless person was a waste of time and calmly responded, I just do the job given to me to the best of my ability.
Old man's best effort isn't worth a dime to me, but hey, do your best.
Finally removing his hand from my shoulder, Gary moved on to the next employee. I shook off the lingering weight of his hand from my shoulder and enlarged the document I was working on to continue. A few minutes later, Gary, carrying a mountain of documents, suddenly dumped them haphazardly on my desk.
Hey, you look like you're not busy. So get your work done properly.
The stacked documents contained confidential information of major corporations and high-value customer data, which was supposed to be handled by the manager originally.
Be grateful I'm using an old geezer like you.
Glared at with the intensity of a sharp blade, I felt intimidated and reluctantly started to organize the top document on the pile. Seeing this, my colleague in the next seat quickly offered to help.
Kevin, you have urgent matters to attend to this week, so I'll help out.
Despite my unremarkable performance, I was known in the office for being solid and quick with my tasks, and everyone was kind to me. Thanks.
Hey?
Just as I was about to pass the documents to my colleague, Carrie, with a face like a demon, charged at us like a boar and grabbed my wrist, holding the documents with a grip that seemed intended to crush it.
I asked you, not someone else. Don't even think about getting off easy by asking for help.
He approached me, gritting his back teeth and red-faced as if steam was about to come out. My colleague looked at me with a nearly crying face, filling me with an incredible sense of guilt. Yes, I'm so sorry.
Remember, I specifically asked you because you're the one with the most time on your hands in this bank.
Yes, I'm very sorry. Gary, seeing me respond with a lowered head and a hoarse voice, grinned creepily and added insult to injury by piling up even more documents on my desk.
If you have the time to ask someone else, you can do this too.
After dumping another pile on my desk as if to seal the deal, Gary quickly gathered his things and vanished somewhere, probably to grab lunch. Being accustomed to cooking for myself and being frugal, I bring my own lunchbox, while Gary seems to enjoy eating out every day. And no matter how much I toil over these documents, it's Gary who will handle the negotiations, and of course, all the credit goes to him. Gary, adept at maintaining appearances and adept at charming with cunning rhetoric, operated under the philosophy of the ends justify the means, with a sales style focused solely on personal gain, without regard for the disadvantage of others. Once Gary was out of sight, my colleague, who had been looking worried all along, came jogging over.
I've decided, I'll help you out.
The kindness of a teammate made me feel a warm sense of gratitude.
I can't stand watching this. I want to talk to the branch manager.
No, really, you don't have to go that far for me.
Now that Gary's not around, let me quickly tell him something.
Ignoring my protests to stop, he hurried off to the branch manager Tom's office, and I hastily followed.
Tom, the way Gary treats Kevin is just too harsh to watch.
Breathing heavily, he passionately pleaded my case with eyes narrowed and earnest.
Well, but Gary has been bringing in good sales numbers, so I really can't say anything against him.
But those sales figures come thanks to the documents Kevin prepares.
Documents could be prepared by anyone. Sales figures are the real measure of individual ability. so I can reprimand Gary over something like that.
The already troubled manager frowned even more, sizing up my colleague with an unabashed stare.
But
My colleague tried to counter, but realizing our efforts were futile, I stepped forward, interrupting him while showing understanding. Understood, we won't press the issue further. Sorry for any trouble.
Good, as long as you understand.
Relieved by my concession, Tom quickly excused himself from our presence. While I appreciated my colleague's feelings, a mix of resignation and acceptance of the reality of working life settled over me. As the rainy season ended and the real heat of summer began, Gary, as usual, went to a negotiation with the documents I had prepared. My documents had laid out the current situation of our customer and planned the upcoming schedule on a monthly basis in graphs, aiming for a plan where both sides could slowly but surely make a profit. However, Gary, after reviewing my documents, seems to have mixed in his own ideas and secured a deal that significantly favored us more than planned.
I've just closed a huge deal this time.
He stomped around the office with such heavy steps that you'd think a monster was walking, making his presence known. Catching my eye, he smirked maliciously and strutted straight over.
Want me to tell you how I made it a success?
He said, mocking me with eyes murky as a polluted river.
You probably wouldn't understand, being the old fogey that you are. But I'll tell you anyway.
Seeing that I didn't argue back, he seemed to get even more pleased with himself and started to blabber.
We're gonna bring in the latest AI and have it take over all the teller tasks that humans used to do.
What?
Surprised? Well, someone like you, an old fogey, wouldn't even think of using AI like that.
He laughed dryly, full of pride. My plan also included introducing AI, but not to cut down on staff, rather to improve operational efficiency. The customer's main strength lay in its robust workforce, particularly the teller services known as the jewel in their crown, representing the face of the company. The approach Gary unilaterally proposed would lose this vital component. Certainly, the personalized proposals made to each customer at the teller service take time because they're tailored to each individual. Thus, implementing AI could theoretically benefit both parties in terms of numbers. Moreover, the customer has always been somewhat traditional, harboring a strong fascination for cutting-edge technology, eagerly desiring the incorporation of something as advanced as AI. However, the operation of AI as proposed by Gary would result in a one-size-fits-all plan for every customer, potentially dealing a significant blow to the customer. On the other hand, this bank is actively working on AI implementation, and by creating a case where staff is reduced through AI introduction, it can receive a substantial grant from the government as an AI-encouraged company. That would put the counterparty at a disadvantage.
What gives you the right to have an opinion?
He glared at me like I was a bug, snorting disdainfully.
As long as it makes money, that's what matters.
Did Tom approve of this too?
Yes, of course. With this much profit and a grant from the government, why not?
Duh.
Besides, we're using cutting-edge AI, and the counterparty was thrilled about it.
I felt that Gary hadn't mentioned the drawbacks during the negotiation, and was appalled by his overconfidence, deciding to wash my hands of whatever happens next. A few days later, an incident occurred. On a scorching summer day, with a relentless chirping of cicadas, a man stormed into the bank, yelling loud enough to crack the ground. It turned out he was from a company Gary had unilaterally decided to negotiate with using my documents.
What the hell is going on?
He scanned the employees inside with a glare as fierce as an erupting volcano, breathing heavily.
Well, well. How can I help you today?
Gary approached with a feigned cluelessness, rubbing his hands together.
The problem is this deal is unacceptable.
The man slammed the crumpled documents he was holding onto the desk.
I'm terribly sorry. May I review the documents?
Upon receiving the crumpled documents, Gary didn't even glance at the content before shockingly pinning the blame on me.
Indeed, I can see why you would be upset with these documents. They were prepared by a staff member named Kevin at our bank.
He coolly shifted the blame onto me with a breezy expression. The customer turned towards me with the force of a Grim Reaper wielding a scythe.
How do you intend to take responsibility for this?
I'm terribly sorry. While it's true I prepared the materials, I understand that Gary from our company had a completely different proposal.
That's just an excuse.
I'm terribly sorry. With a glare so intense I felt I might be crushed, all I could do was apologize. Enjoying the exchange, Gary clapped his hands together with exaggerated enthusiasm, suppressing a smirk.
On this occasion, it was our Kevin who has been extremely rude. The responsibility will, of course, all be on Kevin.
Continuing to rub his palms together, he added,
Given the situation, Kevin will be fired.
What? Faced with Gary's decisive momentum, the customer's expression softened a bit.
If you're going that far, I might reconsider.
Oh, thank you for your generous heart.
As Gary proceeded to settle the matter on his own, I couldn't stay silent and hastily interjected. Gary, that's too much, and it's too soon for you alone to decide.
Consider my words as if they were the branch managers.
I deeply felt that no words could reach Gary, who was absurdly tyrannical and overbearing. When the branch manager Tom arrived, clearly aware something unusual was happening, he attempted to walk past us pretending not to notice, so I shouted towards him in a last-ditch effort for hope. Tom.
No need to shout. I can hear you.
He came over to us reluctantly, waving his hand as if shooing away a mosquito. Gary made a decision on a deal that led to a complaint, and now I'm being fired just because my documents were used.
Of course, all the responsibility falls on Kevin.
If Gary says so, then it can't be helped.
The customer also said they would be satisfied if Kevin were to be fired.
Gary could barely contain his laughter.
As expected of Gary, perfect in handling the customers.
I felt the blood drain from my body. Without proper investigation, to be framed and fired so easily by this bank was futile. Holding back the urge to yell out in frustration, I managed to say calmly, I understand, I accept being fired. In the heavy atmosphere, only Gary was grinning with pleasure. After seeing off the customer, Tom and Gary glared at me as if I were a criminal.
Well, that's the situation. So you don't need to come in starting next month.
That's brutal.
You have 2 more weeks. I hope you can make amends in that time.
While Tom hurriedly left the scene, Gary approached me in slow motion, as if in a movie.
Unfortunately, no one needs an incompetent old relic like you.
With that, he burst into laughter he could no longer contain and almost skipped away from me. 2 weeks flew by, and at the end of the month, I started the resignation process. Having been a customer relations officer, I was privy to a lot of confidential information that needed careful handling. Among them, a certain customer I was solely responsible for was originally one of the small to medium-sized businesses I managed. However, as their business thrived and the managed funds increased, it reached a deposit of $30 million. Thankfully, the company's president always expressed gratitude for my attentive listening and dealings, refusing any proposals from others, no matter how attractive they were. Valuing and sincerely engaging with customers was natural for me, and seeing the president's appreciation taught me the importance of doing what is considered standard. Handling the confidential documents, entrusted to me because of trust, was a significant challenge. Then, Gary came to me with an unusually bright smile, quietly approaching.
Kevin.
His tone had changed completely from when he declared my firing, now sickeningly sweet.
You were in charge of handling a $30 million deposit, weren't you? I'll take care of it until the end in your stead.
Trying to hide my goosebump-covered arms, I quickened the pace of tidying up my surroundings as I replied, "I'm sorry, but the customer specifically requested me, so it's not possible."
What? Why would someone like you?
He exaggeratedly raised his hands, widened his eyes, and took a step back in mock surprise. "I've had a long relationship with the customer, and there's a trust between us. Thankfully, they've said the business succeeded because of my dealings. The transaction was based on the trust between the president and me, but I'm fired now, so it's no longer my concern."
That $30 million account. I'll be taking it over. So it's none of your business.
He must have been desperate to get his hands on that account. Gary, with eyes glittering as if being so money-minded, had no intention of listening to my story.
If we nail this deal, I could finally become a branch manager. Heck, even a department head isn't out of the question.
He stretched his arms wide, looking up to the sky as if he had already achieved it. Gary, lost in the thrill of success, was daydreaming about which luxury brands to splurge on, but his dream didn't last long. Immediately after, the sound of a single ringing phone echoed loudly enough to wake someone up. That was a plot twist like something out of a movie, coming from an unexpected source.
Hey you, Gary.
Tom, on phone duty, hurried over, looking frantic.
What's the matter, Tom?
That $30 million account Kevin were handling for is about to be snatched by a rival bank.
I don't follow what you mean.
Snapped back to reality, Gary shrunk like a turtle, hands instinctively moving close to his ears.
Why are you letting such an important customer slip away?
That's Kevin's fault. Everything will be settled once he's gone.
Let's hear more about this.
Tom and Gary began to argue, loud enough for customers at the counter to hear. I had already decided to switch jobs to that rival bank, and the $30 million customer wanted to follow me, deciding to move their deposits there. Disgusted by their childish quarrel, I was deeply relieved to be leaving this bank, finishing my paperwork and walking out. 3 months after the turmoil, as autumn deepened and the leaves turned beautifully, I found myself working as a customer relations officer at the new bank, just as before. Despite not dealing with the glamorous large corporations I once dreamed of, I'm still handling small and medium-sized enterprises, sticking to my sincere sales style and steadily building trust. This bank appreciates my approach, and a promotion has already been decided for the near future. One holiday, I was invited out to eat by a former colleague from my old bank.
Ever since Kevin left, things have turned pretty bad.
With a gloomy face and distant gaze, my colleague shared this bit of news. Apparently, the argument between Gary and Tom during that commotion was overheard by customers, leading them to lose trust and leave.
We're desperately trying to attract new customers every day since getting chewed out by headquarters, but it's hopeless.
My colleague said with a dry laugh, looking close to their limit. So, I invited my colleague to join the bank I had switched to, and I saw a flicker of life return to her eyes.
Tom and Gary were demoted to handle new customer acquisitions as a form of taking responsibility, and they're so busy they barely have time to sleep.
Developing new customers, the most challenging and demanding task, seemed a fitting punishment for them. They were so arrogant before, they've got what was coming to them.
Exactly. And they still haven't changed their condescending attitude, failing to secure any contracts.
I hope they're regretting it a little.
More than a little, I reckon. Both of them are told they'd be fired if they don't secure the next contract.
I see. Watching the bright red autumn leaves fall, I was struck by how quickly time passes. No matter how successful one might appear, losing sight of what truly matters can lead to painful consequences. I vowed to continue living honestly and straightforwardly, no matter what anyone else might say.